Have you ever noticed that everyone in Chainsaw Man is a loser? And I mean everyone. Every character is fundamentally, embarrassingly flawed in one way or another. So why is this such a prevalent pattern within the story? Did Fujimoto write this as an intentional theme? Or is it just a narrative device to make the characters more relatable? Well, having previously made a video on Chainsaw Man's rule of cool, I think it would be interesting to analyze the other side of the coin. This is Chainsaw Man's loser theory. Firstly, I do need to give credit where it's due. The original concept for this theory is loosely based on a Twitter thread by Winterflan. It was written a couple years ago and a lot has happened in the story since then, so I'll be expanding on this central idea by analyzing every major character in depth and hopefully figuring out what this all means for the story. Spoiler warning of course for most of part 1 and some of part 2, but without further ado, let's start dunking on our main cast in order of appearance. In the beginning, Denji is introduced to us as a socially inept, impulsive, and crass teenager. This is of course not even his fault, and is instead a result of the years of isolation and mistreatment he faced as an orphan under the Yakuza. He has no money, no bitches, and no food, with Pochita, a demonic orange puppy who can't even talk, being his only frame of reference for a positive relationship. So after he's given a job and 3 square meals a day, Denji makes getting laid his entire life's purpose, conflating physical intimacy with a basic need for love and affection. This of course backfires on him time and time again, and will probably continue to for the rest of the story as his fatal flaw. He's so blinded by this desperation that he doesn't notice he's being manipulated by Makima until everything is taken from him. And even then, the epiphany that he draws from his newfound fame is not driven by duty, but by greed. He becomes a vigilante superhero in service of his own selfish goals. But I don't think that's a mistake. There's a reason this scene has been recaptioned as the "he's literally me for real" meme, because it taps into the selfish desires that everyone has, but that we usually hide behind more noble motivations. Denji's honesty here is what makes this scene relatable. Nobody wants to be a rock star just for the music, but he quickly discovers that the double life isn't all it's cracked up to be. The people love Chainsaw Man, but no one cares about Denji. In an ironic twist of fate, he's put himself right back into the same position of people only caring about his chainsaw heart. The complete disconnect between this hero identity and the reality of Denji as a person is made all too clear in his desperate attempt to appeal to Asa. He brazenly reveals his secret identity as Chainsaw Man, and well, her response speaks for itself. Makima isn't a character most would perceive as a loser, but once you take a closer look, her facade falls apart. We get hints that she's just as lonely and socially inept as Denji during their movie date, and they would have probably gotten along great if she didn't force herself to hate his guts. She had Denji in the palm of her hand for the whole story, so much so that even after brutalizing his found family, he still couldn't shake his feelings for her. But no, she's a hopeless, embarrassing, parasocial stand for the hero of hell, with wildly incorrect headcanons about who Chainsaw Man is. Makima could have pulled him aside from the start and said, "Hey, did you know you have the ability to erase entire concepts from reality? I can help you unlock this power, if you agree to my plan." The entire Denji Man fusion has proven that he is capable of erasing devils, just like Vegeta, and it's fitting that Denji only unlocked this transformation after he fully overcame the trauma that she inflicted on him. Makima was her own worst enemy all along. And then there's the little details, like doing the puppy voice as her master plan comes together, or her attempt to aura farm while smoking a cigarette after victory, only to immediately cough on the fumes. She's just an all-around loser at the end of the day. Aki, on the surface level, appears to be an exception to the rule, especially at the peak of his character arc. He's driven by a noble cause, quits smoking once he finds something worth protecting, and is willing to sacrifice himself and his goals for the people he cares about. But in a world where everyone's a loser, this makes him stand out as abnormal, a fact that is commented on by various other characters. In a world full of weirdos, he acts like a cringy shonen protagonist by comparison. Power is the greatest character ever put to page, but she is of course a loser. Her terrible hygiene and general idiocy speaks for itself, and despite bullying Kobeni for cracking under pressure, she is just as much of a coward, if not more so when it really matters. But this contrast only adds to her appeal. Power is the kind of character that would be absolutely insufferable to be around in person, but within the confines of fiction, every move she makes is hilarious. Her delusions of grandeur are simply too endearing, which makes her perhaps the most lovable loser in part 1. Now with the central cast out of the way, let's round up the rest of Part 1's characters. And full disclosure, I won't be talking about random devils or the more minor members of public safety, because we just don't see enough of them for me to make a judgment. This is to say, Beam, Violence, Tendo, and Kurose all get a free pass. Himeno, however, is a depressed young woman, racked with survivor's guilt, who has every bad coping mechanism under the sun. She drinks, smokes, and sleeps with anyone who shows the slightest interest in her. Loser. Kobeni is the only character that has normal reactions to all the messed up stuff that happens in the story, which should make her seem relatable and normal. Unfortunately, everyone within public safety is slightly insane, which makes her stand out as a sniveling, cowardly loser. Katana Man, on the other hand, is one of the more obvious losers in the story. Beyond his edgy getup, the man just spams the same move over and over, and gets one shot every time. It's become a running joke in the series at this point. He's also a huge misogynist, which is never a cool look. And to top it all off, Denji, who we have already established as a massive loser, lives in his mind rent-free to this day. It takes a special kind of loser to have that level of beef with a teenager. Kishibe is a badass, despite his rampant alcoholism. Unfortunately for him, he fell for a baddie who turned out to be gay and let it ruin his life. Despite already knowing she was an absolute fruitcake, he kept chasing her in denial. It's on you at that point, buddy. Angel is so lazy he'd rather die than work, loves ice cream to an almost embarrassing level, and is emotionally closed off and touch-starved, though admittedly that last part isn't his fault. Also his boyfriend is cringe, so he's a loser by association. Reze would have been a genuine badass. She can fight, she can flirt, and she's cute enough to temporarily steal Denji's heart from Makima. Unfortunately, she fails her mission by accidentally catching feelings for Denji, who again, we've established is a huge loser, but a lovable loser at that. Kwanji might be the hardest character to pin a loser status to. I'm struggling to find a moment where she's done something that isn't cool. Okay, never mind. Also, Makima absolutely dunks on her in their final confrontation. You can see in her eyes that's a generational roast. Santa Claus, despite her name, is probably the actual least loser character. Beyond her master plan completely failing in the face of the world's biggest idiot, she's kind of the least memorable villain in Part 1 for me, and the lack of relatability could be why she's overshadowed by the others. Wait, why is the Gun Devil here? They don't even say anything. The Gun Devil gets one shot by Makima, loser by definition. Alright, time for Part 2 characters, starting with our heroine. Asa Mitaka is frequently painted as a girl failure or femcel, but I don't think that's entirely true. She is, however, introduced to us as an absolute loser. Her jealous and judgmental nature has led to her being an outcast among her peers, and her supposed dying moments are spent wishing she'd lived her life better. But even after being given a second chance at life, her nature doesn't change. Just like Denji, her years of being a loner have stifled her social skills. This is made most obvious during the aquarium date. After bragging about her looks, on the very next page we cut to her boring Denji half to death with various facts about aquatic life. Couple that with the schedule she planned and rehearsed beforehand, her refusal to eat fish even when she's starving to death, and it becomes pretty clear this girl is somewhere on the spectrum. But being autistic doesn't make you a loser. Writing poetry about a guy with a chainsaw for a head, however, does. Of course, not all of this is her fault, and can also be credited to her other half, the War Devil. Yoru is the main antagonist of Part 2, and just like Makima, she is a grade A loser. At times, she can be cartoonishly evil and childishly cruel, but her facade crumbles at the slightest inconvenience. You just need to look at how she acts in the most recent fight to see that she is the most rage-baitable villain of all time. But reveling in a villain's catastrophic failure is just a natural part of storytelling. It's catharsis. There are, however, no excuses for all the other cringeworthy things she does, like being in complete denial about her feelings towards others. She evidently likes Denji somewhat, but brushes it off as Asa's brain influencing her. And then in the latest chapter, she essentially loses the fight by impulsively dodging a bird because she didn't want to upset Asa. The only thing more embarrassing than being a loser is trying to hide the fact that you're a loser. Now Yoshida is technically introduced in Part 1, but he doesn't become a loser until Part 2. He repeatedly lets his duty to public safety get in the way of his wish for a genuine friendship with Denji. We get a glimpse of what could have been right before he blows himself up in an ultimate act of blind loyalty. I think the guy is genuinely afraid of becoming attached, as evidenced by his weird remarks regarding parasocial relationships. Maybe the guy went through a breakup recently. Either way, it's loser behavior. Nayuta is a child, and children are cringe by default, but ironically, she's less of a loser than Makima. I guess Denji raised her right. Her overly possessive nature towards him is pretty loser-coded, but her decision to basically sacrifice herself to save Denji just moments after he tried to push her away proves that she's a good kid at the end of the day. Yuko is a school terrorizes her school through what she deems her vision of justice. She also got duped into joining a cult, a cautionary tale for how the downtrodden are easy pickings for those who want to misuse their influence. As such, I'm gonna lump in the rest of the Chainsaw Man church gang under this loser banner too. Fami, also known as Lil D, eats food like a freak. I'm talking straight up creature behavior. She's supposed to be the prophesized great king of terror, but would rather go sing karaoke with her human friends. She's so afraid of destroying the world that she tries to manipulate Denji and Yoru into becoming powerful enough to stop her. Her heart's in the right place, but that doesn't make her any less of a loser. The Falling Devil, despite being a certified baddie, is also loser-coded. Consider her cringe, food-based dialogue. Like, who even says this? And her aura is significantly dampened by her goofy chef outfit. Fumiko is a character that's hard to judge until we know more. She's done a lot of cringe things, but I'm reluctant to joke about it considering her implied past. At the very least, I can call her a loser for being a coward and dipping at the first sign of danger. As for Miri, the Sword Man, Denji calls him a loser right off the bat. He's basically the same joke as Katana Man, being fodderized again and again, but on top of this, he's embarrassingly naive, and completely oblivious to the dark nature of the Chainsaw Man Church. Speaking of, let's wrap this up with a roundup of their heavy hitters. Spear Hybrid is just sadistic and can't aura farm to save his life. Whip Hybrid, despite being 80 years old, acts like a child and believes she was chosen by God. And finally, we have Barum, a cringe-ass simp who still hasn't gotten over his crush on Makima. He has all the flaws of the previous three wrapped into one, and to top it all off, he grudges with a literal child. He's so tilted about Makima dying that he takes it out on her next incarnation. Just an all-around freak. So what does this say about the story of Chainsaw Man? Well, on the surface level, I think Fujimoto just enjoys writing this kind of outlandish character, and Chainsaw Man's setting is the perfect stage to do so. In a world where you could be attacked by some eldritch horror at any moment, and the most reliable source of employment is to hunt these monsters, the average person is going to be a little messed up in the head, be it from past trauma, the strain of day-to-day life, or simply their true nature. But beyond the inward reasons, it also makes the characters more interesting. If Denji wasn't a weirdo, he would just be some tragic kid with edgy demon powers, fighting other demons, which is still cool, but would be in no way relatable to the average person. It's easy to make someone relate to a loser, because losers are normal. Every one of us has been called a loser or done something embarrassing at some point in our lives. We all have cringeworthy memories that keep us up at night, even after years have passed. And the reason Fujimoto applies this principle to villains too, is because he puts no stocks in aura, which is in stark contrast to other series these days. I remember how negatively some people reacted to Ginu showing the slightest emotion in solo leveling, saying it ruined his aura in their perfect power fantasy. But in Chainsaw Man, nobody is safe. Nobody is infallible, no matter how badass they seem at first. Because when even your major villains aren't immune to falling flat on their face sometimes, it humanizes them. It makes them feel real. And that is why everyone in Chainsaw Man is a loser. Thank you for watching.